So today, the main event, without further ado, I'm welcoming Adrian Katz here. And I just want to thank him. He has been working tirelessly on this project around the connector and other pieces of our mentor technology for over a year now. And it's been a very exciting journey. I remember meeting him when I first was at the Alberta Mentoring Partnership, and he came out to visit and wanted to know how the Alberta Mentoring Partnership had ran a mentor connector, what our experience was, and the opportunity to scale something like this across Canada, and how we can get more young people involved and make it easier for volunteers to find opportunities to mentor. So Adrian has been in the field doing this work for well over a year, and you'll see now the results of this and how we're going to scale it up and out and across Canada. So Adrian, I unmute your mic and invite you to take it from here.
Hi, everybody.
Oh.
Am I hearable?
Could you speak up a little bit? Let's up your audio a little bit.
Huh. Can everybody hear me?
Much better. And you've got control of the mouse.
Wonderful. Mouse control is the thing I aspire. All right. Thank you for that warm welcome, Michael. I appreciate it. He didn't add in his actual impressions of me as a human being when we first met, which, I'll let him do it another time. Welcome, everybody. Indeed, the Mentor Connector has been a long time in the making, but not in the grand scheme of things. In the grand scheme of things, it's actually probably been a kind of short period of time. Let's dive into what the connector is. So, you say I have control of this thing, Michael. Oh, there we go, arrows. There's little arrows down there. Okay, so what is the Mentoring Connector? The Mentoring Connector is a tool that is used online to connect mentors and mentees with the mentoring program. The point of this is to create a definitive list of mentoring opportunities, both for the mentors and mentees, by having folks like you all who are service providers entering in information about available programs and a bunch of the data about the nature of those programs. And then we will contact you and verify the information. And it will be listed in a searchable database that with search widgets that are located on the web properties of some of our partner entities, as well as getting wired into a bunch of different opportunity sharing databases. And then we will refer mentors who fill out a little bit of information identifying what type of program they're interested in to relevant programs in their area. And that means to you. And similarly, the same functionality will apply for mentees. So the goal of this is to try to scale up and out the mentoring opportunities that you provide in your communities, and in order to increase your recruitment potential, particularly for mentors. And where is that button again? Michael, did you do that? There we go. Next, I say. All right. So here's some of the the marketing copy for why you'd want to use the connector. First and foremost, of course, because it's free, and who doesn't like free stuff? It's very easy to get started. All you have to do really is enter in the information about your program, and then the system will allow us to validate the data about your program. So the types of fields that we're collecting are things like the name of the program, who the volunteer coordinators are, so that we can refer communications directly to them from mentors, the type of mentoring that you provide, one-on-one, group, whether it's in person or virtual, um, and sorry, and the location or areas that are served by your program, and a number of other details related to the type of mentoring that you do, and also the mechanics of how you vet and train your mentors, etc. And with that information, that data then becomes searchable publicly, and we provide a mechanism for recruits to contact you guys directly. So one of the huge benefits to operating in this fashion is that there are ways, of course, for people to find mentoring programs, but there are none that are like a qualified listing. So we want to make one central repository that properly parameterizes the type and nature of mentoring, and also to validate that a program indeed is providing mentoring. Because as we all know, there are a number of different types of let's call it service providers that indicate that they're delivering mentoring programs, but in reality, they're not necessarily a mentoring program by the definition that Michael presented in the earlier slides. The other interesting factor is that we can then start providing you guys with clear data about the landscape of mentoring across the country and also locally. And by that, I mean that we can define, or we can start providing you with data about the number and types of mentoring programs in your areas, how that stacks up to areas across the country and at the provincial and national levels. We can start getting some information about the volume of demand for mentors and mentees, by mentors and mentees for programs. And we can also see where recruitment is falling short. And that will allow you guys to articulate with actual numbers the case for the programs and the developments you'd like to make with your programs, at least in terms of that particular dimension. So that data will be available to you in real time. And we're also going to use the marketing apparatus, for lack of a better way of putting it, of the Canadian Mentoring Partnership, now Mentor Canada, or to be Mentor Canada. Michael, at what point do we start saying Mentor Canada? Is it now?
October 1st, but you'll
Okay.
start seeing the products will be branded Mentor Canada, but we'll be using both until October 1st.
Okay, so the Canadian Mentoring Partnership's marketing apparatus to start assisting with the recruitment for your programs. And that means by our ability to place our search widget, which will allow partner entities like Michael had suggested, sporting organizations, local community volunteer centers, etc., to use our search tools to list your recruitment, your mentoring opportunities. We can expand and scale and amplify your recruitment functions. And for you guys, it's done once you've listed your program. It's just a click of a button. And one of the key features that'll be added in at a later date will be the ability to turn on and off recruitment, schedule it during particular periods when you have a recruitment drive. And we're wiring in the connector to pre-existing systems, like we're doing a pilot project with 211 Canada, which is a developing entity which is nationalizing the 211 service that exists locally and regionally to coordinate the data for mentoring programs. So we'll ensure that listings are accurate in more than one location, not just through the CMP. And then we're also going to be doing a pilot project, or we are starting a pilot project with Volunteer Canada to coordinate with volunteer centers in order to use their networks for recruitment directly via the connector. And similarly, we're through the pilot project with Volunteer Canada, we'll be launching connections into the LinkedIn posting systems for volunteering for your programs, as well as Charity Village, and most likely looking at Indeed as well. So you'll have one central place to come in, turn on your recruitment, or control when recruitment's happening. You'll get to select where it gets listed. So in addition to just being searchable through the system that we present on our website and through our partners, that searching function, you'll be able to control additional amplification of your listings through local volunteer centers, as well as major listing entities like LinkedIn, Charity Village, and Indeed. And all of that will hopefully translate to you being able to quantify and qualify the nature of recruitment and the rates of demand and how to apportion recruitment efforts in a more not that your ways of doing it now aren't justifiable, but you'll be able to really hone in on the data that makes the case for different approaches to recruitment. Did we mention it's free? Yeah, it's free. So the connector has been, this isn't a new idea per se. The technological approach to this may be a little bit updated, so to speak, but it's a concept in Canada which was prototyped by the Alberta Mentoring Partnership, and they've had some pretty important success, and you can see it in the numbers here on this slide. Mentor USA, if I'm not mistaken, and if there's somebody from Mentor in the States on this webinar, perhaps you can correct me, but I think they're fielding on the order, I think it's on the order of about 100,000 searches through their connector a year. And that number is ever increasing, and they've embedded their search functions in a wide range of partner websites to increase the visibility of mentoring programs across the country. And that goes from, NBA sites through various recruitment and human services websites. And that's been the inspiration to build the connector here. We based it largely on Mentor's approach in the States. So it's a similar concept, but also, I mean, it's pretty much, it's a pretty obvious way of doing this work. We've updated it to reduce the number of steps that's required by a service provider in order to make this a useful tool. So we've really streamlined the user interface and the way that you would interact with the system, so that it's as painless as possible, and hopefully kind of set it and forget it type thing until you get to the point where you want to look at that data and extract it, or you want to start modifying the way that your recruitment is timed or where it's being showed up, where it is showing up. So the steps to getting in here, sorry, for somebody, a recruit that's looking for a program, wherever they wind up landing on this search widget, all they really have to do is fill in a little bit of demographic information about themselves, if they choose to. None of it's necessary information except for the region in which they are, if they want to do in-person mentoring. So who you are, the type of mentoring you're interested in, and where you are. And then the system will match that request with programs. And then the user simply clicks a button to get in touch with the program, and the system abstracts away their contact information so that people can maintain a degree of privacy. Communications are sent to the program coordinator or volunteer coordinator within a given program that a recruit has contacted them and is interested in applying, and then you simply email back from whatever email address you receive the email at, and it goes directly to the potential recruit. And once that's happened, the contact information becomes available to both parties. and there you go. The process then follows however you perform volunteer induction. And that's really all there is to it. The same principle applies for a mentee. So to get listed, we'll be doing a drive at the end of the week. I expect we'll be sending out a link to everybody asking you to go and list your programs. It'll probably be on the domain getlisted.mentoringcanada.ca and the French equivalent. Excuse me. And all you'll have to do is go and submit the information about your program. Bear in mind, maybe I've underplayed the number of fields. We do ask for a lot of information about a program, but it shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes to fill out the form for a given program. And then we'll review the submissions, contact you if there are any things that need to be clarified, and then we will wait until we have enough volume of programs to make a search meaningful for an end user, and then we'll aim to be launching this in October. So expect a communication from us asking you to get listed within the week. Michael, would you mind hitting the next slide, because the buttons overlapped for me. Thank you. Yes, you can be listed for many programs. So different organizations, many of them have multiple mentoring programs. So you can make a separate listing for each program, and you can control the recruitment for each one of those separately. You can also identify different program coordinators or volunteer coordinators if they are a different person. It doesn't have to be. Once the system's launched, we'll be on a regular basis adding in additional features, hopefully guided by you folks. So the first pass is really a basic data collection and connecting or referral system. And then the next iteration of the system, as we work with you folks, will be to add in additional management features that you think are useful.
So one of those could be, if my program is, say, full and we are on a wait list and we aren't taking any more volunteers, it could refer to a designated trusted partner in the community or something like that.
Yep. That's one of the concepts we've been kicking around. Before going ahead and building that, though, we want to take an opportunity to, or the opportunity to work with the community and find out what are different functions that specifically would work for you folks. So is that something you would like to see? Or what haven't we thought of, really? And I'm sure there's going to be a great deal of that. So that'll come in the last bit of this year when we make a call out to create a community of practice on service provision. Michael, if you don't mind hitting the next one. So I think I mentioned some of this stuff already. There are the real key to the system, in my opinion anyway, is the amplification potential. So it's not just about adding another place where you can be searched and found outside of Google or Bing, if you happen to use Bing or some other interesting search function on the interwebs. It's our ability to connect out to partner entities and larger listing systems, which requires a reasonable degree of technical work that we feel many service providers could really benefit from to amplify their listings and their visibility, but that is prohibitively expensive. So we're working with a bunch of entities like Volunteer Canada. Through them, we'll be working with Charity Village and LinkedIn to connect the connector to those listing services. Again, I had mentioned working with the folks at 211 to do a pilot project now to connect up and synchronize the listings between our system and theirs, so that no matter which door you enter into, you have the ability to be recognized as a mentoring program, and to make sure that that information is very proactively updated and validated at regular intervals, so that we don't miss recruitment opportunities for mentors. We'll also be taking requests. So if there are systems or places where you think we should be automatically listing your opportunities or your programs, we'd like to hear from you, and we'll see if we can do that. And over the next year or so, following the initial launch of the connector, we'll be in that next iteration of development where we take our cues directly from the community.
Next.
Yes, please. Oh, sorry. Just a pregnant pause for no reason. And now I'll hand it back to you, Michael, to explain some of the marketing that'll go into driving traffic to the connector.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think many of you have captured the general idea by now that we have a catch-all site like becomeamentor.ca. And by visiting that site, you're able to type in the community you live, or search for the type of program that you're looking for, whether it's group mentoring or one-on-one mentoring or a different kind of mentoring. You can look maybe by online or some other form. You can search by a particular demographic if you're looking for a mentoring program with your faith or cultural community or another piece. And the idea is that this becomeamentor.ca, this mentor connector engine, becomes the one-stop shop to help introduce people to opportunities all across Canada. So it's a wonderful way to help all of us, the rising tide lift all the ships. Because instead of recruiting just for one particular program in one community, we're recruiting for the concept of mentoring, which will help others find out about more programs. I don't know if you've had this experience, but sometimes a volunteer is looking to become a mentor and they go to one program, but they may be full, and then they get discouraged and they don't proceed, or they wait for maybe a couple of years. Well, meanwhile, there may be a program down the road that's looking for volunteers right now where there's youth waiting. So this mentor connector will allow us to help make sure that volunteers across Canada, we're making it easier for them. We're helping connect people to the right kinds of programs that work for their schedule. So say they can't make the commitment of a weekly meeting, but say because of shift work or whatever, they could do bi-weekly. Well, the connector will help us find more opportunities there. And from a broad scale of a marketing perspective, being able to do like Mentor has done in the United States and have NBA stars and partners who are significant influencers do videos and say becomeamentor.ca, that will be able to really get us profile, not just across Canada but across North America, because the same partnerships that Mentor has forged with the NBA also have a huge listing with the Toronto Raptors and others like that too. So there's going to be lots of opportunity going forward, where we as one organization representing everyone across Canada, we can be the sum of the whole that will be much greater than the individual parts to help everyone grow together. So you'll see that in January when we're launching our Mentor Month campaign, where we'll be working with media partners to do hundreds of thousands of ads across Canada. I think even millions of ads across Canada through social media and other forms that will allow more Canadians to learn about opportunities right in their own community or online where they can volunteer to help a young person. I think we've all found through COVID that more and more we're having to find stopgap solutions, and now the opportunity for, say, a group of university students going to Simon Fraser in Vancouver being able to volunteer as mentors online to a program in rural Manitoba now is more of a possibility, and we can think creatively about that. And those are the conversations we want to have with you going forward. So really we're, as the image shows, there's 4.1 million young people in Canada. There's more than enough young people to go around for all of us. We need the connector is going to help us move out of a competitor mindset where if you get a volunteer, that means one other person, one other program down the street does not get a volunteer. That's not the mindset we have. We believe there's more than enough volunteers, more than enough young people. The problem is the connection, and that's the problem that we're trying to fix here. So through our content, we'll be doing recruitment campaigns like Mentoring Month, like I talked about. We'll be brokering new partnerships, be it with the NBA, Mentor, NHL, influencers, corporate partners. We've been doing through our Power Mentoring campaign some phenomenal work with corporate Canada through everyone from the Toronto Pearson Airport to Deloitte and other recognizable brands. And we'll be producing content, real research and guides and training. I encourage you to sign up if you have not done so already for our next webinar on the mentor training. But all of these pieces together will help drive more awareness and more volunteerism across Canada. So you'll be seeing together through our collective impact that the content that we're producing as the Canadian Mentoring Partnership, soon to be Mentor Canada, it will help drive traffic to a common message. Wherever you are in Canada, become a mentor, start mentoring, and the connector is the engine to allow that possibility to happen. So what you really need to do is make sure you get listed. So we talked a little bit about this, about how we're going to build support across sectors, across different domains, through education, through corporate, through the voluntary sector, working with different seniors organizations. And if you have other partnerships that you believe we should be exploring that could be scaled across Canada, if say you have a really good relationship with a local Rotary Club, maybe a church, maybe some other organization or faith group that has partners in other provinces, we want to scale that up. There's no reason that the same excellence that's say working in Nova Scotia couldn't work over in British Columbia. And we want to make sure that we are forging and growing those ties across the country. So Adrian, this is going to be an interactive process that we're going to be working with the community. And do you want to share a little bit about how we'll be seeking engagement from here on building out those features and functionality you talked about?
Oh, sorry, I'm just, yes. So I was just answering questions. So while Michael's talking, not that what he has to say isn't invaluable, I just happen to have heard it already. I was answering some of the questions in the Q&A, and I encourage people to pop into the Q&A to post their questions. And if I don't get to them in writing, I'll answer them live momentarily. So the community of practice. Again, Michael, unfortunately, my little toolbar has overlapped the...
Here, I can skip it for you.
Yeah. I don't know how to get rid of it. IT people always suck at IT, just for the record.
So tell us more about the communities of practice, Adrian.
Thank you, Michael. The idea here is actually not just to have a community of practice that's about the connector specifically. It's a larger intention of the CMP to have a community of practice related to service provision. And to speak about a number of different things, amongst which methods and support for recruitment and visibility, recruitment of mentors, and the visibility of programs and access by mentees to the programs is discussed. And so we are looking to put together an invitation for a community of practice in the coming months, where we will, among other things, discuss the mechanics of the connector, how it's working out for people, what can be modified or adapted to meet the real needs of service providers on an ongoing basis. And we picture this being a long-term group presumably there will be people coming in and out depending on where we're at thematically with the community of practice. But it will generally circle around service provision. Tracy Luca Huger is on the call too. That's our Director of Partnership Network. Director Partnership Network. The Chancellor is on the call and perhaps might have a bit more to say about this stuff, but it might be premature at this point. Suffice it to say that we will be actively seeking feedback and input on the ongoing development and build of this system and all of CNP's, or all of the systems that CNP is supporting for the community.
Thanks for that, Adrian. So I just have a couple more slides to get through and then we'll get to the Q&A. So if you do have questions or other thoughts, please post them in the Q&A. That's very helpful. So if you'd like to hear more about what we're doing in terms of how we can help you recruit more mentors for your program, we encourage you to check out our Symposium Series 2020, where we actually had a dedicated session called Growing the Number of Mentors in Canada. That was May 20th. You can go and watch the recording of the video. There's the PowerPoint deck as well. We had Dan Horgan on from the United States, who has done a campaign making connections across Canada with us, and also one in, he's done a campaign in the United States making connections for young people and businesses and corporations. He's also done that for us here in Canada with our Power Mentoring campaign. And he had some fantastic kind of theory to think about and flip your recruitment mindset that I highly recommend. And we shared some of the success stories from around Canada, including the Alberta Mentoring Partnership and others, on how they've increased volunteer recruitment. And of course, if you have success stories to share about how you've increased your volunteer recruitment and retention, please do let us know. We'd love to profile you across Canada and help spread the learnings. So we'll be talking more in future about how to go ahead with the connector, but the connector is really the supplemental tool to everything we're doing about leveraging existing relationships. We know the best source of a new recruit is a friend of a current recruit, so somebody who already is mentoring with you. We know that people who know them are your next best source. The word of mouth is phenomenal. So the connector will make it easier, because somebody who's talking to a friend in another community about how powerful mentoring is for them, they'll be able to say, oh, well, visit becomeamentor.ca and find a program in your community. We'll be able to introduce and support new relationships. We'll be able to find more champions and grow the number of new volunteers across Canada. This is extremely timely for us, because in the preliminary results of our youth survey, we found that when we asked youth what were their barriers to accessing mentoring, the over half, 55%, the largest barrier they said was they didn't know how to find a mentor. So part of the problem is, if that youth is, say, talking to a teacher or a parent or a caring adult, and they're looking for a mentoring program or thinking about an experience, they don't know where to look. But if they visit becomeamentor.ca, they'll be able to see local programs that are recruiting volunteers, that are operational, and eventually that will be able to make greater connections. So eliminating barriers in terms of finding volunteers for the programs, but also raising the profile for prospective mentees, that's going to be very helpful. So the call to action, as Adrian said, you're going to be getting an email next week about getting listed in the connector. The more information you can provide in the fields, the better, because it allows us to better make sure that the people searching for you find you and find the right fit with you. So that's why the fields you'll see are requested. So you'll fill that out. Tell us about a friend, tell us about another program or a partner in another province or community who should be in the connector. Let us know. We'll make a connection to them and we'll invite them to join the connector as well. we're doing a webinar on August 31st, all about online training. We're taking another product of the Alberta Mentoring Partnership, their online mentor training that's been used by over 11,000 Albertans since it was created. We're taking that, making it bilingual, and scaling it across Canada. So all of you will have access to this fantastic 1-hour online mentor training that is not just a great training, but it's also a great screening tool to help people get a sense of what really is involved in becoming a mentor. So before they decide to fill in an application or before they decide to do a training, they can do this online training for 1 hour, and it can help introduce them to the key themes about what mentoring is and why it's important and what's involved. So again, we find that training, it's called an online training, but really it's, I think, one of the best and inspirational pitches to becoming a mentor and helping make sure that mentoring is right for you. So we'll be talking all about that on August 31st in 2 weeks. You can register for that webinar at mentoringcanada.ca/events. So now we're going to get to the Q&A. I see Lori from Toronto mentioned she thinks this idea is a good idea because it will allow us to refer youth to mentoring programs that best fit the youth's needs. And I think that's absolutely true. I think sometimes one piece we didn't mention was the idea of youth aging out. So a youth who maybe, say, in a Big Brothers Big Sisters program, but then maybe going off to college and is looking for a post-secondary mentor, or maybe they're looking to start a special program in, say, STEM, and they're looking for another mentor. The Mentor Connector will allow us to find other programs and help take volunteers who are best suited for one program but not another, and help introduce them to that program. And that's, I think, Lori, your point is well taken. We were also asked about, can more than one coordinator be listed for your program? Absolutely. That's part of our goal here too, that from when Michael clicks on the Become a Mentor and say, yes, I'd like to become a mentor in Red Deer at Youth HQ, then a message is fired to Youth HQ saying, here's a new volunteer for you, here's Michael. So you can make sure whoever on your end then takes that email and starts screening and connecting with Michael, you can make sure that happens. So yeah, that's up to you. We will bring you the prospective volunteers. It's up to you to decide from there how you proceed. Kathy asked about and I'm going to ask Adrian to speak to this one because I think it's an important question, about if you're already listed in other services, will you be added to the connector automatically? Or if not, how are we going to navigate that question of eliminating duplication? Adrian?
Unmute. Unmuted. I answered that one in writing. I can refer you there, or I'll just summarize it here. So if you go to the Q&A tab, for those of you that want to, cut and paste this, by all means, the idea is that through calls between the different systems, particularly with the Volunteer Canada and 211, we'll be able to reconcile the records, but that it will happen following the initial launch of the connector. So we'd recommend that, and on the first pass, you list your programs in our system. When we are all wired up together, we'll validate, reconcile those records. That might involve a phone call to the program or whoever listed the record, at least in the CMP system, to verify if there are any differences between the listings, which one is the authoritative one, and then we'll correct it in all of the systems. And moving forward from that point, once they're connected together, the plan is to make sure that any change in one of the systems can be reflected out to the other ones. And any new record that's added into one of the systems, if it's related to mentoring, will be made available through the CMP system. And vice versa, you'll have the opportunity to say, when you're adding a program to our system, I would like you to please list this in Volunteer Canada's network as well as in 211, and it'll be placed in the appropriate databases. That's the intent.
Adrian, Holly asked, if the Mentor Connector is designed for both mentors and mentees, what is the thought process behind naming the website in a way that's geared towards mentors? Now, I may have misexplained this, but the idea is that the Mentor Connector raises the profile of mentoring programs and opportunities to become a mentor. We can park that Mentor Connector inside becomeamentor.ca or any other website. We can put it anywhere. The primary goal is to recruit volunteers. That's what the connector is for. It's to introduce people to programs. But the engine of it can be in a number of different domains or places or on partner pages or anything else. Am I correct, or how would you respond to Holly?
Yeah, so what a user, a potential mentor or mentee sees is going to be essentially a search widget that's placed in many, many, many different places. So they won't necessarily see the fact that it's called the Mentoring Connector. That's just a name that we're using amongst service providers to indicate what this is. But that's just to get listings of programs. When a mentor or mentee is trying to find a program, that search form and function will be embedded in many, 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 many different locations. So while we're chatting, I'll try to call up an example of one of those from our colleagues in the States, just to make it clear what exactly we mean. And in the meantime, I'll answer some other questions, if that's all right.
Sure. Another question that came up was about the working groups and the communities of practice. Janet, if you subscribe to our newsletter, we'll be sharing more information there as well. For the folks who attended the webinar today, we'll be emailing you with more information, not just about how to get listed, but if you'd like to participate in one of the communities of practice in order to provide your feedback, that'll be forthcoming. Like you, probably, we're trying to navigate everybody's holiday schedules before back to school.
I see a question here. There are a couple from Ray Carr. So the first one, if people make a connection through the Mentoring Connector, will you provide follow-up about how the relationship worked out? No, we're not going to be doing that, at least not initially. And the reason for that is that this system is not a system for delivering the services or supporting the actual delivery of mentoring. It is a system simply for referral and recruitment of mentors and mentees and to find programs. That idea, though, is what has been referred to as the Holy Grail. We're looking at different integrations with some of the larger, at least initially, some of the larger organizations that have technical systems that maybe the connector could speak directly to in order to track the progress of induction of a mentor and or the connection of a mentee to a mentor or some form of mentoring relationship, and therefore at some point relating that to outcomes. That's a really, 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 really big, complex problem that many people have worked on in many, many different ways. There are hundreds of mentoring systems out there, so there's no sort of silver bullet for how you can connect all of these different things together to gain a holistic data set or a sort of homogeneous data set that allows you to perform analysis. It's one of the things that the CMP struggles with generally, and that is a good segue to your second question, Ray, which is, what is our understanding of what the research says is the single most important factor in the success of a youth mentoring relationship? And the reason I say it's a good segue is because both of these are related to research, and I think perhaps you may want to consider sending a message to our Director of Research and Evaluation, Véronique Church-Duplessis. I don't remember her email address off the top of my head because of that hyphenated family name. It's in the chat? Oh, you did it already? Wow, okay, great. And ask her for those pieces of information.
And I would encourage all of our readers to check out the preliminary findings from the youth survey. They're really interesting. Again, that was just the snapshot. There'll be more information coming this fall. I think one of the other pieces that's interesting about this whole idea of the mentor connector is that just because you have 5 referrals to your mentoring program does not necessarily mean that you're going to have 5 new volunteers, and that's okay, because we know that how time intensive it is to screen and to train and to go through processing a new volunteer, that if we're able to help people get more information and learn about your program before actually getting engaged in the program, the more we can help people learn about opportunities that are maybe a better fit for them, the better. This will help us reduce the volunteer attrition, and this will help it will help us get more of the right volunteers to the right place at the right time where they can continue for longer. Covenant House asked about a deadline to complete the form to get listed in the connector. I would say no, it's going to be a rolling intake. We would encourage you though to try and, if we send you the form next week, try and get it done very quickly so we can list you in the first. We need help with the pilot as well too. So the more programs that get listed earlier, the better. So please do so sooner. And I believe Covenant House, you have been listed elsewhere. I think you were in the Alberta Connector, or at least maybe one of your Alberta programs was, or something. Maybe I made a mistake there, but yeah, you sign up sooner, get listed sooner, and but we will do rolling intake throughout time. So if somebody starts a new Michael's Mentors program, they can fill it out later on and use that to gain support. So
sorry, I was muted there. Hey, Michael, I just wanted to follow up on that question about embedding how the connector really kind of shows up in web properties. So can I share my screen here? Yes, I
here,
can.
1 sec. You can try.
I can, and I just stole the screen sharing. All right, can everybody see my browser? So this is an example of how Mentor embeds their connector in order to drive recruitment. So they have hundreds of partners where they have made agreements where their little form for locating mentors is displayed. And all that a mentor has to do is, or a mentee is, put in their contact information. These are the required fields, your name, email address, and zip code, because that's how an application is done. And then select the kind of mentoring that you want. Ours is a little bit more, it has been modernized a bit. Select what kind of youth you're looking to work with, and if there are any particular groups that you're interested in working with, as well as how far from your location you're willing to travel for in-person stuff. We're also adding in a virtual option, obviously, given the times. And then, so actually I have this nice hello world, and being Canadian 90210 is the example. And you get a list of programs that are available. 90210, if you'll recall, is that show in, I think it's Beverly Hills or something. Is that it? Beverly Hills 90210. So that's the zip code. And then it lists the programs that are in their system for that area. And then you can apply to the program. This will already be populated because we've entered it already, but that's the way that their system works. Now, like I said, we've reduced the number of steps involved in this and cleaned it up a bit to make it easier for the end user. But that's the way we're aiming to amplify connection to your programs, by creating those relationships with a variety of search partners.
And that widget, there's no limit to how many places we can place that widget. So it could be on a university recruitment page. If there's a page about how to get into college, or how to boost your or scholarships or something, you can have ways to let people know about mentoring, both as a way to volunteer and to give back and to get involved, but also also just to raise awareness of programs and opportunities across Canada.